It's a long story, but it's one you might have heard before, and the truth is scarier than monsters or men. Growing up, my mother was the only person I could trust in this world, and the only person I could love for a long time. She was a hardcore drug addict, though, and she couldn't take care of me, no matter how hard she tried. Growing up, she tried to give me and my brothers a father figure. She married a man named Rick, and he was quite the asshole. My mother put him through hell. She was constantly in and out of hospitals and rehab facilities all throughout the time I grew up with them, and he would take that anger out on me and my brothers. Around the time I was maybe 4, something really bad had happened with my mother, and me and my slightly older brother had to stay with my stepfather's sister for a time. While living with my stepfather's sister, I was subjected to CSA in various ways. Luckily, my brother did not have the same fate as I did there. My mother's sister took custody of him shortly after we were living there. I suppose I should clarify, my abuse happened after my brother had left. So, I don't recollect how long it took, but a couple months after my aunt had taken custody of my brother, Rick and my mother came back one day and took me back. Me being a child, I didn't understand the lengths of what I had been through, and it didn't even faze me at that point, but now I know. Around the time I was 5, my mother, I don't really know what her mindset was, but she took me and decided that the only way I could escape from that life was to be given off. So she bribed me with a video game, and she dropped me off at my aunt's house and left me there. I still remember that first night. I couldn't sleep. The only person I trusted in this whole world had up and left me. Like I was no good. What could I have done wrong? How could I have prevented it? These thoughts played through my mind over and over like a broken record tape. And it would continue that way for years. I was away from my mom for about 1.5 years, maybe. I lived with my grandma for the majority of that time. She's a nice lady, and I still love her to death. She's still with us, thankfully. At the time, I wasn't very fond of my grandmother, and we didn't have the best of a relationship, so when given the opportunity, I decided to go back and live with my mother, the one person I trusted in this world at that time. She was living at a rehab facility in the downtown Rochester called the YWCA. There were other people with their kids there, and I remember that time fondly, as that was one of the only times in my life I can remember my mom being sober for more than a couple weeks. So we lived there for a couple months, and she met a boyfriend. She was with him for a while, actually. He was a very nice man. He taught me how to 3D print, he taught me how to draw, taught me how to be creative and make what I wanted. But shortly into their relationship, he had gotten a new job, and when my mother had asked him for money, he couldn't give it to her because he hadn't been paid yet, and that was the end of their relationship. Shortly after my mother had ended it with her boyfriend, things went downhill rather quickly for her. She had been selling her Suboxone to a family friend at the time, and she had gotten snitched on. We were kicked out of the rehab facility, and we had to move into an apartment complex in Greece, New York. Greece, Rochester, whatever you call it. She began to use rather quickly, I can recall many instances of child neglect and misuse, I suppose. There's one occasion where she tried to convince me to steal a cart of groceries from a Walmart. There were multiple occasions of me walking across 4-lane highways and walking a couple miles on my own as a little 6, maybe 7-year-old to go get food, or scrounging through couch cushions for nickels and dimes just to feed myself for lunch. As crazy as it might sound, there was one time where she hadn't paid off her drug dealer, and this was a person who I had actually met previously and played video games with, and he was threatening my mother. So I walked out with a can of hairspray and a lighter, and I managed to scare him off. This would all come to a head on one night in particular, when my mother had consumed copious amounts of whatever substance she enjoyed. She was seeing frantic hallucinations of my brothers and past animal pets. And I was scared shitless. I didn't know who that was. It surely wasn't my mother. I ran to her boyfriend's house and explained what I saw and heard, and he took me back home. After a little while, of course. When we arrived, the house was trashed, couches flipped over. My mother was asleep on one of the other couches, and he would tuck me in for that night. The next day, when I'd come home from school, my mother was nowhere to be found. I proceeded to return to her boyfriend's house, not knowing where else to go, and I spent a couple hours with him. Eventually, we returned to the apartment complex, and he asked me to check if my mother was there. My mother was not there, but all my friends were. And me being the stupid kid I was, I decided to stay. And stay I did. Eventually, nighttime rolled around, and I asked my friend if I could stay with him and his mother, because I was too scared to be alone at that age. Little did I know that the next time I would see my mother would be on her deathbed. The next day after school, my grandmother and some police officers were waiting for me, and from then on I would live with my grandmother. Over the years, I would talk to my mother here and there, and I would continually shut her out of my life. I had even gotten a restraining order at one time. A decade would pass, and I would turn 17. At this time, I wasn't living with my grandmother. I had ran away from home, and I was working, still going through school. I was working a shift one day, and my grandma called me and told me that my mother was in the hospital, and I got there as soon as I could. When I found her, I was told that she had sepsis, and her limbs were necrotizing right in front of our eyes. I had a long talk with a corpse that day, and I wept over her. And I reminisced about anything I could. I tried to give her a peaceful rest, because in my heart I loved her, even though I denied that for all those years. Eventually, we put her to rest. There was no saving her. She would have been a cripple without arms or legs. And that would be the end of my mother's story. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed or got something out of this. Have a nice night.